Okay, we'll get started here in about a few minutes. All right, welcome everybody to this week's Stock Analysis Friday. Great to have you here. I'm going to cover a few administrational items. Market's down, looks like it's down about 750 points roughly right now. So this is kind of expected. We're going to be testing, I think, a very critical low bottom here at some point, probably next week. We'll take a look and see what kind of follow through we have on the markets overall today. But let me go through the administrational items. Get your stocks ready. Remember, type them in the comments area in all caps, and let's get going. All right, first thing I have to, of course, tell you a little bit about are the risks involved in trading. Like I always say, without those risks, there is no opportunity. So the two really go hand in hand. But we want to make sure you understand that there are risks in trading, and everything we do in the markets is really based off probabilities, not guarantees. And so it is possible to lose some or all your money trading the financial markets. And when we talk about stocks here that we look at today, please run any of these ideas or forecasts that we have or opinions past your financial advisor, accountant, or attorney, whoever manages your money, just to be sure they are suitable for you, because we don't know your personal situation, and of course they do. Know how to do risk control, and if you need help with that, hey, come visit us. We have a great book I'll show you in just a minute on risk control. But also, too, make sure you trade with money you can afford to risk, called risk capital. All right, so I got a number of books on Amazon. I'll put a link below if you're watching the recording. Gene may put one up here on the live thing, but you have to copy it, and paste it into your browser. But in any case, my newest book is on the far right, called The Money Management for Traders. It's that green colored book. And basically, the response has been great on this book. It's almost like a cliff notes of that book on the far left, which is our comprehensive book on money management. And that's called The Trader's Money Management System. So the nice thing about the new book is we've taken the important concepts in that other book and condensed them into an easy to follow format so you can get this up and running and add this to your set of trading rules so you have risk control. So that's kind of really important. It's a great book. And of course, we have other books available, and you can check out all the reviews as well. We also use a variety of software tools. I've been trading the markets now for over 30 years. And these tools are a culmination of what I found works in the market. And basically, it's a combination of charting software. You're going to see me use that, and also scanners, and also risk control. Risk control is a vital part of trading the market successfully because we're not always right when we trade the market. So we want to keep those losing trades as small as possible and let those winning trades, of course, run. And then finally, please like, subscribe, and share us. The more people we get to come here each and every Friday, the more stocks we can share, the more opportunities we can find. So definitely check that out. And then finally, I just want to thank everybody for attending. And if you're watching the recording, great to have you here as well. All right, so let's get out of here and go into the charts. I happen to have the Nasdaq here. This is a very, very short intraday time frame. These are the time frames, for example, we use when we day trade. And as you can see, the Nasdaq, this is the MNQ futures contract. June 22nd is the expiration date, so it's this month. And it's a micro contract. So it's a great contract to use for day trading. 1 minute time frame in the center. We've got 15-second time frame on the right and the 5 minute time frame on, 15-second on the left and the 5 minute on the right. So we use multiple time frame analysis. We had a nice short trade on this morning, and that has been covered because it was bottoming out, getting ready for a bounce. But what I want to share with you today, I want to go over a few things today before we jump into the stocks and take a look at the Nasdaq. So here's the Nasdaq. We've already had an incredible movement down this entire year, actually since the fall in the Nasdaq. I don't think it's done. I think we're close to getting to a shorter term bottom. We're going to get a bounce off this, and then I think returns to more lows. Now, if you've been following me, then you probably know that I've already recommended shorts on both the Nasdaq and the Dow about two and a half months ago. So you should be in pretty good shape on that. I would continue to hold those if you can. I want to look at a couple more here. Let's take a look at the Dow real quick. Now, if you're in the S&P, it's going to pretty much look, I would say, very similar to the Dow. So let me just bring the Dow up. I also want to look at the bond market through the TLT market because that's kind of interesting as well. All right, so one of the key things we look at is in this time frame, this is the weekly chart when we're looking at long-term aspect of the market. It was over here. This chart in the center is our daily chart for multiple time frame analysis. This is our intermediate trend. And then on the far left, we got our 60-minute chart over here for the short-term trend. So when I look at a market, whether it's a stock or an index or an ETF or even a futures, it's always set up so I look at 3 time frames on the same market. The reason I do that is it helps me time entries and exits and see what's going on the different short, intermediate, and long-term aspects of that market. Now, in the Dow Jones over here, I'm going to open up for just a moment this Dow Jones chart here. And here we are starting to slide down and have been pretty much for the entire year. We had one of our indicators called the pyramid trading point initiating a short position back here about in April. All right. And it's getting very close, I think, to possibility of a high that's been put in here that could last for a number of years. Now, this is a weekly chart. So this would be what I would call a wave 3 top. Now, there's one thing that has to happen This price bar here is a major support level. If prices continue down and take that out, then I'm going to say at that point or declare that we are in a major bull market that should last about 2 years. And then the recovery is going to take another 1.5 years to 2 on top of that. So this is what we would call a significant top here. And what we would be in if this happens is a long-term correction. We need to go below that line. We haven't yet. We'll see what happens. Market is kind of picking up velocity again to the downside. We had an inflection point here that was hit and the market came down. Then another inflection point here and we're moving down again. So kind of interesting on what's going on in the Dow. Now, I also want to look at a couple other things here. I want to take a look at silver and the TLT, and then I'll get started, okay? So silver market really quickly. Let's jump into this. Now, a lot of people out there, I know on YouTube and so forth, are predicting silver to go up, all right? And they may certainly be correct. But for right now, when you look at the truths of the market, which is price and momentum, you can see we've been coming down in silver. We've got more room. This indicator here is called the PTF. And basically, I created this so I could use it to see when bottoms or tops have a likelihood of being in place. It's about a 75% accuracy rate. And when it's red, there is a high probability we're going down further than the lowest price in that red area. So I've got red over here and red over here on both time frames. That's pretty powerful that we're not done coming down in silver. So why am I telling you this? Well, if you're looking for a buy, which I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, wait a little while because I don't think we have a bottom in this. I think we're going down a little further and then we'll look at it again. So I'd like you to come back next week and let's take a look at it again and see how it's going. TLT is the next one I want to take a quick look at. And this is an ETF for the bonds. We got a major bottom right here, okay, where this red line is. Again, bearish momentum here, bearish momentum here, bearish here. Don't buy into the bonds yet. A lot of people, a lot of actually experienced people in the bond market say this is going to be a great place to go when the market, the equities market collapses. I don't disagree with that, but not yet. Okay, let's keep an eye on that and see when that turns around because we are getting closer and closer to a bottom, I think, on TLT. But again, not there quite yet. All right, let's jump in and see what people have got out there. All right, so first one I see out there is from Key. How are you, Key? ATEN. And he's long on ATEN and he's looking for a good stop. All right, so a couple things here. Let's let this load. All right, so notice on the short-term key on the far left, we have a lot of red shown here. So it's pulling back and it's not done yet. It's going to come down a little bit more. We have green here, however, indicating that after this short-term pullback, based on this chart here, we should return and make new highs and eventually go above 19 bucks roughly. And that's saying the same thing here. But we are definitely in a correction right now, and you can see that since the high. So you do have to be a little careful here. So what I would do here, if you are long, and I don't know exactly where you got in, but I kind of think at this particular point, you got to be a little bit on the careful side. I would say if we go below here, okay, you probably are going to be in a major correction at that time. And that probably will be fairly close to the target. Let's draw a couple of fib retracements in and see how they look at that particular point. You're kind of in it already. So I think basically just wait for the red to go away on the 60-minute and put your stop below that bottom there. And I think you're good to go. All right. I think eventually this will recover and you'll be okay. But you may see a little bit more pain before it does. So it all depends on where you got in really and how much profit you're either sitting on or not and what's your exposure in terms of trade size. Remember, always use our trade size calculator or the risk to reward calculator. Calculate that trade size and know your stop ahead of time before going into a trade so you know exactly how much the loss will be if you have to take it. All right, so that's kind of definitely important to do. All right, Dan, how are you doing today? All right, And Stuart's saying, nice day here in Paradise, and Paradise here today is San Diego. So yeah, we've had a couple of real good days here. All right, Dan, let's take a look at yours here. LLY. Give that a second to load, Dan, and we'll take a look. All right, so Dan, I don't know if you're long what you're doing on this or you're thinking about going in. If you're thinking about going in for the first time, I would not do that. It's a little overextended at this point, and it looks like it's pulling back. If you have been in this a long term, riding up this trend to the big side here, put your stop right under this pyramid here. Okay, that's how we would recommend doing that. Because you've had 1, 2, 3, 4 pyramids in a row, and after 4, you know, the trend gets a little overextended. We have bearish divergence building here, bearish divergence building here, and we had no bearish divergence here and here because we didn't have a high. Instead, this went into a correction. So I think we're pulling down here. This may not be the big one where it comes down into this zone here, but we could be entering the big one. And it's just the beginning of a larger correction. So you do have to be careful here because this trend is so overextended to the downside right now. So definitely watch that one for sure. All right, let's take a look at your next one, SOFI. SOFI. Now, if you come back and look at the recordings, make sure you realize that I put a timeline on these. So you don't have to watch the whole video to find a particular stock, but you do have to open up the information, the menu underneath it, you know, where I put the comments. So you have to open that up so you can see the timeline. They kind of hide the timeline a little bit. All right, Sue, let's take a look and see what's going on with this bad boy. Again, coming down right now. It looks like it's not quite ready for a bullish trade. In fact, if you're still short, you probably should stay short. And if you're trading off the 60-minute, you definitely want to stay short because you have a red PTF and a red owl. So you're still coming down. When you get that bottom, all right, then you should get a move back to the upside. So this, not a lot of history on this one, kind of new. All right, but I would not jump into this yet. I think it's going a little bit lower, and then we'll take a look at it for a bottom. So you might want to bring that one up next week. All right, FNV, let's take a look at that. Give that a second to load. And on this one here, let's open up that weekly chart here because we got definitely a lot of history here. And I love that because it really tells the picture. Okay, so it's been moving up. You can see we have bullish trend line that's been moving up. We have a lot of short-term trend lines. It's kind of gotten, since the market has topped on the Dow so far, it's kind of gotten zigzaggy. So we got to be careful. If the market falls out of bed, this may follow along with it. So you got to be really careful at this point. I probably am not too crazy about this stock because we had a move up and it's getting a little toppy. So a long position, you got to be concerned about. Let's see what the lower time frames are telling us. Yeah, they're kind of telling us it's choppy. And you can certainly see coming down here. So I wouldn't take a short. I wouldn't take a long. I would just move on. Don't take a long. Don't take a short. Just move on. All right. One stock I did want to look up is STEM. Now, this is one we looked at last week. This was one of our possibilities. I think it was STEM for last week. Also, AMD was a good one. So this one here is still looking good, I think, for a long trade. The only thing now is we no longer have a green owl on the 60 minutes. So I would kind of hold off. We're pulling back here. If you're long from last week, keep your stop. You got to put your stop low. The first bounce off the bottom is always followed by a significant retracement to test the bottom, and then it goes. So if you're in already, got to have that stop at the bottom. AMD, let's take a look at that one and see if we, this was one of our favorites, and this one is same exact thing. So first move off the bottom, and now it's going to retrace it and test. I would not go into this week, okay? Let it come down. Let's see if this bottom does hold. And if it does, it will turn around, and then you can go in again at that particular point if you missed the entry already. So that's AMD. All right, Stuart, SBUX. Let's take a look there. Not sure what you're doing with this one. Maybe watching it for a bottom. Very similar to the others because now you see with the negativity or bearishness that's come into the market this week, Notice now the 60-minute chart on this is bearish as well. In terms of an owl, we got a bearish owl over here, and we have a move down. So this is green. This is pretty bearish still. Anytime you go against a downtrend on a longer time frame, and you want to try to time a bottom on a shorter time frame, go with half a position size. Okay, be careful with the position size. Now, this one here, if you're in it, again, you want your stop at the bottom. If you're not in it, don't take it. It's not quite right to go long yet because it now is coming down a little bit. All right, RBLX. Give that a second to load. Okay, so we looked at this one before last week, I guess, and now here it's going to come down. All these are testing the bottom this week, so we'll see what happens. But don't go into this now because now you have a red PTF and a red owl on the short-term time frames. So now it's a matter of whether the bottom is going to hold, and that's exactly where your stop needs to be. Because if the bottom doesn't hold, you don't want to stay in that market because you don't know exactly how far down it's going to go. So you kind of want to get out at your stop. Always adhere to your stops. So that is those two. Let's keep going here. ABBV. And this one is for Al. Hey, Al, how are you doing? Al, you've been like hitting home runs lately. You have come up with a tremendous amount of picks. All right, so Al, by the way, also helps run our Yummy Room. So he's in there with the Yummy traders as well, and doing a great job in there. Okay, so pretty clear what I like about this one, Al. Let's open up this one. And what I like about most of the ones you have been picking is they're pretty clear. So wave 3, bullish. Doesn't mean we're not going to get a pullback. The PTF is basically telling you the market will return and make a new high. What the PTF does not tell you is whether you're in how deep the correction is going to be. In other words, the pullback, and also when it's going to take out that high. So for that, we look at other things like Elliott wave and so forth, and notice the owl has this pegged as a wave 3. So let's just quickly, for fun here, draw up some fib retracements. And I think probably here to here might be good. So we got a little bit more possibility if it goes into a major correction to go into that target zone. This will have to go red for it to fulfill the requirements of a major wave 4 on this time frame. But let's see what the daily is showing. Because don't forget, there's waves inside waves, and this is already got the red down here. So that's a good sign. Green PTF short term. So I don't think it's going into a major correction quite yet. All right, you usually would not have a green PTF on the lower time frame if that's the case. So I'm kind of thinking here that maybe we're seeing a correction off the short-term swing here. We're in the target zone, so that may reverse and make one more high. So here's my suggestion on this. I would say it's not ready yet because we got a lot of red still in the 60-minute chart on the far left, and we still have a red owl on the daily chart. So not quite ready. Let's see how far down this is going to go, but it should end somewhere between those two blue lines on the daily chart if this is a short-term correction only. If it develops into a long-term correction, then it's going to be deeper and it will end up on the 2 lines on the far right-hand chart, which is our weekly chart. So in any case here, stay out. Let's wait and see what kind of correction it develops into. Okay, I think that's important. All right, let's move on here. Let's see what else we got here. And again, if I miss anybody, just type it in again and remind me, okay? Because there's a lot of chat going on here. Okay, so let's see what else we got here. Okay, so your Al is there profitable now, taking profits. I'm short for the short term, okay. All right, NVIDIA, let's take a look at that bad boy. That was one I think we kind of liked as well. I think it was getting close, maybe last week. I'm not sure if we had an entry on that. I kind of think it was close. Might have been. We might have had a red owl when we looked at it last. All right, so we got green now, but again, like every other market here that is popped off its short-term bottom, we're seeing more selling now. So again, red owl here, red PTF here. I would not go in. We're still coming back down. The $1 million question for all these stocks we're looking at on this correction here is, will the bottom hold? So let's see if it tests the bottom. So you don't want to go in now. If you're in already, your stop is down here. Nothing you can do about that. But if you're not in, don't go in now, because this is red and this is red. Wait until this turns around. You'll get a good entry at some point if that bottom holds and the trade is meant to be. But for right now, I would hold off on that. In any trade where the lower time frame is bearish. Okay, hopefully that helps. All right, let's keep moving along here. All right, the other one to look at is, GBTC. That is the crypto ETF. And a lot of folks have been asking me about that. All right, so we have had a major upset on this market. Okay, it's down at $18.94. And a lot of red still exists here. You have a red owl here. Now, what's interesting and what we're going to watch with this, on the next move down, because this is saying short term, we're still heading down. When this bottoms, we have to come over to the weekly chart over here and look at this PTF and see if it remains green, because it could turn red if it keeps going down. So we got to watch that. If it turns red, you don't even want to consider a long position. Right now, do not consider a long position. Do not buy crypto at this point. It's still coming down, and we're not sure where the bottom's going to end up on this. It could come quite a bit down and form a double bottom. It may recover. It may never recover. The PTF on this here is showing that it should recover, but it has to stay green when the bottom is finally in on this pullback that we're still in. So not sure how this one's going to turn out, but hopefully you got out, or indicators certainly got you out in time to take even profits for the most part. So you should be in good shape. The only time you would have gone in and lost a little bit is thinking this was a bottom here and here recently, okay? Otherwise, you would have done well on the uptrend from the very beginning on that. So stay out of this, okay? Not quite ready yet. All right, let's move on here, okay? Dan, BHP. Market still down over 700 points right now. roughly 31,532 on the Dow. All right, so let's take a look at BHP. All right, so BHP is coming down. Again, Dan, I don't know if you're long, short, just thinking about it. But in this case here, the lower time frame is bearish. So you definitely want to not go long here if you are thinking about it. Give it some more time. It's kind of a messy market, honestly. So it's not the best stock I've seen for momentum trading at this point. 60-minute chart is the clearest out of them all. The rest are kind of messy. I mean, look at the weekly chart. That's kind of a pretty volatile mess over there. So I would kind of avoid this one. All right. Let's try your other one here. VWAGY. You know, as traders, what you want to kind of do is go with the markets that are clear and stay away from the ones that aren't so clear. Don't take the marginal trades, okay? All right, so not a lot of history. Go back to about 2019 on this bad boy, and notice what happened here. Now we have a red PTF on the far left. So, you know, like most of the other stocks, market's down a lot. This is coming back in the short-term time frames. And again, we've been coming down off this now for since 2021 for a long time. All right, so it doesn't appear to be a buying point quite yet at this point. So I kind of would hold off, wait until this rolls over and turns green on the 60-minute. Then maybe, you know, if you go long, then what you'd be saying there, if this bottom holds on this move back, then you're calling this a major bottom, and you're trying to get in early on the next move up. Okay, so I get that. but you can't do that until this turns bullish, and make sure this is green still before taking a long trade. So no red on the OWL or the PTF on the short-term time frames on that, okay? And cut your trade size in half because the weekly chart has a pretty strong OWL to the downside. Let me just move that up so you can see it. All right, so should end at some point, but so far, not yet, okay? Thank you for sharing that. All right, so I'm trying to think of any others to show you for this week. Let's take a look at Apple real quick. All right, because some people had entered a short trade on this, kind of, it's almost like the Dow, you know, came down and moved up and then gave us a nice short there. So if you're still short on this, I think you can remain short for right now. Okay. How about Microsoft? That's another one, I think. Yeah, still moving down. So all the major stocks are getting affected by the sell-off in the market. All right, HBAN for OWL. Let's take a look at that. And Kevin, I see yours now, and Gene, I see yours as well. All right, so give this a second to load for HBAN. And I'd say look out below. All right, so 60-minute chart, very bearish OWL, and of course a red PTF. Notice here what happened. So the bottom here did not hold. Okay, so the market moved past it. So if you were long here, you got to get out. This is still red in a very big way. So that's showing here we're probably heading down pretty far on this. Now, if this is the COVID low over here on this. So if the market goes into a major correction, that the chances of reaching here are very good. Not 100%, but good. So you got to be careful about that right now. All right, any bottom you pick with this kind of red PTF over here, you got to be careful. Doesn't mean you can't make money on a bounce, but that's all it'll be, is a bounce. So that's heading down. I think if you were long this, you need to be out. All right, so CHTR, let's take a look at that bad boy. Okay, I see a lot of red on the PTFs on all time frames here. Okay, so Kevin, the idea here is that more lows are coming. So you got to be careful here. It could, after the next low, we could get ready for a bounce here. So we kind of got to be a little careful, but we still got a red owl on the short-term time frame. So you got to be careful with that. You know, I would expect a bounce up into this area at some point, but I think you got a little bit more movement possibly to the downside on that. Let's see if this bottom holds. This red PTF, all right, is concerning here, but I've also seen the PTFs remain red for the entire wave 4. So it's possible, not more likely, but possible to get a wave 4 correction and keep this red, because basically wave 5 will make it true. Okay, so you got to kind of be careful. I'd lower the trade size if you're going to take a long position based on a corrective trade, but don't do it until there's no more active pyramids on the 60-minute and we have some green or at least yellow in the PTF and green on the owl. Okay, so that's kind of the way I would look at that. All right, McDonald's, MCD. Let's take a look at that for Gene. Okay, so McDonald's is coming down. Take a look at the PTF on all 3 time frames. You got the weekly red, the daily red, and the 60-minute red. The owl on the 60-minute is red with active pyramids to the downside. We have an active pyramid on the 1-minute chart, slightly green owl, but you also have a dominant pyramid in place. So I would not go long on this. I think it may be, if you want to take a short trade on this, it has to be a long-term short where you want to put your stop as high as possible. And it looks to me like, again, if the overall market's going to correct, it will affect these major stocks. And the COVID low is going to be the target because, if you do a normal fib retracement on these markets, that is in the target zone for a fib retracement. Double that with the fact you got the PTF red. And so if this isn't a major correction, and this is a top that will never be broken for quite some time until after the next major correction is over, then you want to take a short, but you got to put your stop really as high as possible because the volatility that you're going to have on this move down will stop you out if your stop is so close. So keep that stop far away. I'd almost take the short, put the stop up here and forget about it. And then look at it every week and see how it's doing. But that would be a possibility. Okay, on this time frame here, you've got a PTF here. But the problem is unlike the weekly chart, check out, if you went here and put your stop here and your target is here, your risk is this much, and look at how big your gain can be. So that's called risk to reward. It's huge. It's almost 3 to 1 over here. Here, if you put your stop here or here, and your entry is here and your profit target zone is here, you're about a 1.2 to 1. All right, and I don't like to take a trade unless I have like a 2 to 1. So you got to be careful on that. Now, let's just quickly draw a fib extension here. And, that's a huge move up. So I kind of would just wait this one out. I wouldn't even take a short trade here. It's too late. You had an opportunity before, but not so great now. All right. So stay out of that one for this time. Risk rewards, not quite there on it. But let's see what happens on it. But if you want to take a short on the long term, okay. All right, let's keep moving on here. NIO. And this is for key. Again, let me know, if I missed anything from the beginning, type them in again, I'll take a look. All right, so let this load here for a second. All right, so this one is a little different than the other ones. And the reason I say that is green PTF, not red, but it is close to going red. So you gotta be careful here, and you have a red owl. So if you were long from a previous entry, have your stop under here or the pyramid, and those should hold if this is a bottom. If it's not, then you're going to get stopped out. So that's kind of the deal on that. However, if you're thinking about entering now, don't, and wait until this goes green. And let's see a turnaround in here and make sure this owl stays green. If this goes red, then the correction is still coming down. All right, so you got to be careful here a little bit. So if I was going long on this, I'd be careful. You got active pyramids still on the weekly chart to the downside, as well as a red owl, so cut your trade size right away. But in any case here, it's not quite ready for a long trade. But if you're in it, and you would have been in it based on a bullish owl, bullish here, and maybe bullish in here when those were green, then you got to have your stop at the bottom. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, let's take a look at gold. Gold's kind of interesting market. I was discussing this with on another webinar here. All right, let's wait for that to load up here, and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, so here we go. All right, so here is gold. And kind of one of the interesting aspects of gold here is that we had a 2011 high here, which was a 3. Then we had a 4. And then actually the target zone for 5 has already been reached here and here. The thing is, we still have a green PTF here. So I don't think wave 5 is over, but we are definitely pulling back. Now, if you remember back in 2007 and 8, remember the financial crisis we had back then? Okay, gold went up a little bit, but not a whole hell of a lot compared to how bad the financial crisis was. Now, if you think about it, people tend to leave equities or risky investments during economic hardship. And we certainly had it in 2007 with the mortgage industry and all the brokers going out of business and so forth. So you would think a lot of people would go into gold. Didn't quite happen until after really the crisis was over and we were climbing out of it. So I always thought that was very interesting. So if we get this next major sell-off, I do think we'll get more highs in gold, and that's what the PTF is showing here. But I kind of think it's not going to be as dramatic of a push into gold as you may think. And why is that? Well, there's other metals, okay, people can go into that have been beaten down more than gold, like silver, okay? Also, too, even though cryptos are coming down, that may be an area that people kind of want to try to go into. But I think the big one they're going to go into is the bond market, all right? So the bond market's been coming down, and that's kind of expected during times when equities do well. But we probably are getting very close to a bottom in like the 30-year treasuries or something like that, that you might be able to take advantage of when the equity market fails and start to correct. So just food for thought. However, let's talk about trading, what the charts are telling us on this now. So if we look at the daily chart here, we do have a green PTF here. So, okay. Now, this is close to going green. We do have green. I don't know if you can see the little sliver there and no red here. So I also see a ABC corrective pattern here. So this could be a bottom. So if this goes green, you probably got an opportunity, because I think you can probably get in pretty soon, where your risk to reward, all right, will be about 2 to 1 to the PTF target zone. So as far as a momentum trade, that may not be so bad. Wait for the owl to turn green. All right. So I would put gold on a watch list. This is actually not a bad one, because you also have a green PTF, of course, on the weekly chart as well. So I'm going to write down GLD on that one as a possible, but it's not ready yet. Could be close, could be ready next week if it continues to go on up. All right. Thanks for helping us out and looking at that. All right. Yeah, as Gene says, give us a like on this page before you go. Absolutely. The more likes we get, for some reason, better that is in terms of the Amazon AI, or not the Amazon, the YouTube AI. All right, let's take a look at the DPZ here. All right, so you're long on this one, Keith. Thanks for telling me that. And I think you can stay long on this. You've got a green PTF on the 60, and you have a green owl as well. You're going against a major move down on the weekly chart. Let's take a look at that fib area. Got a nice move off the bottom. All right, so nice trade to the long side. The real test is going to be is the next pullback. Is the bottom going to hold? All right, so make sure you have your stop down here. Every time you get in on a first leg off a possible bottom, you got to put the stop at the bottom of the bottom. And the reason for that is you don't want to get stopped out on the pullback because of the volatility. You want to have that stop only placed at the place where your analysis is incorrect, meaning that the bottom is not the bottom. All right, let's just take a look at the weekly chart. I'm going to open that up for just a minute here. And you can see that that has really done a nice job. Okay, so let's do this. Quickly draw. I'm going to just pick a area here where it kind of started to move. So we hit the target zone. I'll tell you that owl is very, very strong to the downside, but it is moving up closer. You have to be careful here because you may get something like this. Okay, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that. But it looks to me like you probably are going to have a pullback and then one more high on this if the PTF on the 60 stays green. All right, so that's what I would suggest on that one. Cut the trade size in half. But I guess DPZ is probably the best one I see for today. But because everything is green on the short-term time frames. It's just I'm not 100% sold that the larger wave 4 is done on the weekly. So you may be able to trade B wave, which will be a pretty significant move up here on the weekly before it cascades down. So I don't see anything wrong with a long trade here. because you're basically trading B wave. Okay, so I like this one. I would put this as my favorite so far today. All right, anybody else? Going once, going twice. All right, Kevin, MA. Let's take a look at MA here. And you are short on this one, right? Okay, sloppy chart. Whew. Okay, so red PTFs though, I got to hand it to you on that. All right, so I don't know where you went short. You got a pyramid stop right up here that seemed to have held here. So that seems to be a good place for your stop. So if you're thinking about going in, that's not a bad situation. Got a green owl there. I'd like to see that red. This is still red. So maybe a trade purely based off the 60-minute chart could be possible. But unfortunately, the risk to reward down to this here is not quite there on that. So I would say probably at this particular point, if you put your stop here and take it down to the target here, let's see what kind, because this is where the PTF turned red. Okay, so here's your entry. You don't have a 2-to-1. You'd have to put your stop here, and you probably are close to a 2-to-1. So problem with this one is it's very volatile. All right, it's not one of my favorite for that reason, but I can certainly understand the short trade. All right, let's see here. Okay, so I think that's it. I think I've gone through them all today. So great job, everybody. Super. All right, so let me just say a couple things here. If you've enjoyed this type of presentation, you know, we do it every Friday. We do it at 8 a.m. Come back. We'd love to see you every Friday. Bring a handful of stocks. We'll look them up. And the idea is kind of turns into its own stock picking service. So we'll be back here next Friday. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here soon. Take care. Oh, one more thing for today. It looks like DPZ is our winner. So let me just type that in again, and let's take a look at that chart one last time. We always like to see if we have a winner, kind of put it up there. So again, it looks like we may be going into a B wave on the weekly chart. Best case scenario is wave 4 is over on the weekly and it'll climb out. Worst case scenario is that we get stopped out because the wave 4 bottom's not in, but we have green on the short term and enough green on the owl in the 1 minute to make this a trade to the long side. So we'll go ahead and go with this one. Okay. All right. So have a great weekend, everybody. And you guys take care.